All right, welcome back into Indiebnb. Today I am joined by George, aka the agency, from beautiful New Jersey. George, how we feeling today?
I'm feeling great. It's good to be with you, Grant. Thanks for all the work you do to support and promote independent artists like me. And
Well,
we're a community. We gotta have each other's backs, and it's very much appreciated.
of course, of course. Well, George, let's start from the beginning. I mean, I think
Yeah.
the music kind of speaks for itself. As far as just kind of getting into some of the themes and different pieces that you've got. I noticed like a lot of theme with your children kind of play into this. Like, so talk to me
Yes.
about like where the inspiration comes from for the project, and then how you started all of it.
Well, Grant, I was never supposed to be here. I was never supposed to be this guy. I was a
Hmm.
guy who took piano lessons as a kid, sang in the choir, uh, learned to play the guitar badly when I went to college, played in a band with my cousin who he was the musician of the family. He went to Manhattan School of Music and studied jazz saxophone. We played in a cover band at some point. And I had written
Hmm.
songs starting when I was a teenager, when I first got a guitar and I went away to college. And, you know, in this generation, the idea was, well, unless you're going to have a record company invest millions of dollars in you, either you're going to be playing the local bar like a loser the rest of your life, or just move on with your life, or you get the lottery ticket. It's only in the last couple of years, especially when the pandemic happened and all the best musicians in the world were also sitting at home, and of course, instrument sales went through the roof. Everybody went back to this thing of, what if I go back and I lived out my musical dreams that I always had? And what I figured out was that actually, with a pretty reasonable amount of money, you can make a really, really good album. And so I went and I culled together the stuff that I've written going back 25, 30 years now, and said, okay, I'm going to start doing this. I'm going to be a musician. I'm going to be a recording artist. And I don't care if anybody ever listens to it. I'm doing it for myself so that I can put on my headphones and say, I made this and I love it. And if somebody else loves it, that's great. I mean, a current count, I think I have 10 monthly listeners on Spotify because I haven't cracked the algorithm yet. I haven't figured all that stuff out yet, but I'm getting there. And if I don't ever get there, I'll be just as happy because it's so much fun to create music. To me, it's a way to be immortal. When you create something like this, you put your heart and soul into it, you live forever, and that's very appealing to me. And I think for obviously a lot of the guests that you talk to probably have the same point of view.
Certainly. I think like, obviously like getting back into it and then, re-uncovering some songs and, that were 25 years old, getting to, give them the, the love and affection that you probably couldn't have
Well,
given
that's
them
the
back
thing. It's
then,
like you go back to these
like,
old demo tapes that you have, and it's like, oh my God, this is so cringy. I can't listen to it. But there's a few in there that, because over the course of 25 or 30 years, you've got quite a lot of songs that you can go back in your catalog of demos that you made.
yeah.
And so when you listen to these gurus that say, well, don't put out any mid material. And I'm like, okay, but when you've got 25 years of backlog, you can cull a really good album or two worth of stuff from the things that hold
Mhm.
up and stand the test of time. And of course, you go back to those with more musical skill, with more perspective on life, with more
Mhm.
appreciation and understanding of the musical context of things. And you elaborate the arrangement a little bit, change the lyrics, change some of the chords, change some of the melodies, just which reflects an older and more mature version of you. But at the heart of it, it's still the same. And I think
Yeah.
that's important to me because as a person now coming into middle age, I just turned 49 years old. What I find interesting is learning how much I'm the same person I was when I was 16, when I first kind of figured out who I was, and how much I've changed and matured. And the music is, I think, a reflection of that because it's still the same me that, those songs were written, some of them when I was a teenager, but
Yeah.
yet they're more mature because they reflect everything that I've learned over time since then. And I'm proud of that. I like that idea as well.
I love that. How much fun was it just to kind of revisit that, headspace again? Because I mean, I'm sure like,
Oh,
look, you've gotten like it's been, so long that you're like, man, I want to remember like how I was feeling at that point when I wrote this, and you kind of go back to that moment. Like, how much fun was that for you just to, dive back into that headspace
well,
a
it
little
was
bit?
tons of fun because I had demos of these things that I made, of various, like some of it was just like a crummy old Sony cassette recorder, pressing
Hmm.
play and strumming the guitar in a dorm room, and some of it was, I don't want to say studio because we weren't in a studio at the time, but I remember it was December of 1997, and I bought the Fostex DMT-8 VL, which was a 8-track digital recorder. And for people who had only known Tascam 4-track cassette recorders, an 8-track digital recorder with, Grant, a 12 megabyte hard drive, 12
Wow.
megabytes, a maximum of
It's like,
5 tracks. And we were like, oh my God, this is amazing. So that was like a step up from recording on cassettes with hiss and all of that stuff. So it was digital recordings, a little bit better. Um, but going back and saying, okay, forget about how it sounds. The song is still the song.
Yeah.
And so, if it's good, if the melody is good and it just feels like it clicks to you, those are the ones that I went back to and said, I still believe in this. And if I'm going to record it properly and I can bring professional musicians to lend their voice to it, it'll be even better. So that's the approach that I took.
That's awesome. I mean, I love your kind of your philosophy, right? Like it's just, honestly a similar philosophy to what we do here. Like, my goal is if I can get somebody one more fan, like that's the kind of anybody who I get on the show, big, small, indifferent, like one more person, that's all that matters. And I love that you're like, hey, look, I want to be immortalized and just on, you put it on the internet, it's on there forever and
Yeah.
it's going to be there until, long after we're all gone,
That's
and it'll,
exactly the point. Coming back to the thing about being a parent and
yeah,
dedicating a couple of the songs. I have two sons, and there's one song dedicated to each of my sons that are released on Spotify so far. And so part of it is also that's a gift to them. That's a dedication to
right.
them that will carry with them forever. When I'm dead and gone, they can go back and say, yeah, this is my dad. This is what he
Yeah.
dedicated to me, what he sang to me. And the first song, "Proud to Be," that was kind of dedicated to the idea of when you're a dad and first time dad, and at least for me, I was not ready for it. And it was, you think that you are, but you're really not. When they put that baby in your arms for the first time, it's just like the awe-inspiring gravity of
Mhm.
that situation. And then the other song written for my son Jude, I wrote that when he was about 2 years old. That was more lighthearted about, it's so great to have this 2-year-old that laughs with you, and you can hug him, and he's responsive, but he's not old enough yet to understand everything you want to tell him and everything you want to share with him. So it was a bit of that, like, I want you to understand how much I love it, how much I worry about you, how much I feel motivated and responsible for you, and how much advice I want to give you about me, about your mom, about your brother, and and kind of life lessons there. So there's a bit of a kind of a cats in the cradle vibe to that song as well.
Yeah.
But people say, "Oh, you wrote those for your sons. That's so nice." No, 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 no. I wrote them about my sons. They're dedicated to my sons, but they're for me. The
Yeah.
artist creates for the artist. It's
Yeah.
because I have those feelings and I want to process them and I want to convey them in an artistic way, in a musical way. And if that touches someone else, like you're saying, even if one person says, "Wow, that's really lovely to hear that a dad loves his son so much that he wrote a song about him and sang it to him," that made me feel good. That for me is
Mhm.
like a blessing to hear. And so that's
Right.
the approach that I take. But it's not, I want people to like this. I'm doing this because I want fans. Or no, if you express who you are and it's genuine, somebody out there will hear it and say, "You know what?
Mhm.
That touched me. That made me
Yeah.
think or feel or appreciate life in a way."
I love that. I love that. Well, I mean, speaking of Jude and I, like that was one of the songs I wanted to spotlight to kind of
Yes.
understand your process, right? Like how to do, obviously we kind of got a little bit more of the, it's for you, it's, a song about your sons and, everybody's
Right.
son and just being able to, sing it to them. But like musically, how do we get there? And, again,
Well,
if you want to dive deeper
I'm
into
glad you're bringing
thematically
that one up
also.
because that was unique in the sense that it's the only song I ever wrote on the ukulele. Now, I never played the
Oh,
ukulele, but when the kids were babies, like, or they were too small to hold a guitar, but just to get them accustomed to music and the idea of playing music and seeing that their dad plays the piano or plays the guitar or whatever. Okay, once he's 2 years old, he can hold the ukulele in his hands, and I can show him how to strum it somehow. And so there was always a ukulele in the house. And okay, it's the same. It's the bottom four strings of the guitar, except
mhm.
the D string is tuned up an octave for those who play the guitar. So if you know how to play the guitar, essentially you know how to play the ukulele. You just have to figure out the chords are more shallow because they don't have the two lower pitched strings of the guitar in there, and it has
Mhm.
a very tinny sound. And the kid's mom hated the ukulele, so whenever I would play it now, she's like, "Oh God, you have to play it. I can't stand it." It's like
Yeah.
it was nails on a chalkboard. But I wrote that song on the ukulele.
Mhm.
And then, so I had this demo, and I work with a producer. I work with several different groups of musicians, but in this particular case, it's a guitarist. He's mostly known as a guitarist, but he's also multi-instrumentalist and a producer named Fernando Perdomo, based out of LA. And so for anyone who visits my site or visits my Instagram, you'll see plenty of content that features Fernando. And if you want to go into a studio with somebody who can take a rough demo that you have and turn it into something beautiful that you'll be proud to show to yourself, to your family, to your friends, and to the world, Fernando's worth your time and money because he's a great guy and he's really good at doing this. So I said, do you have a ukulele in your studio? He goes, yeah, of course I do. I said, okay, well, look, here's the demo I have. He's like, okay, say no more. So we laid down the basic ukulele track, and then he added drums and bass and acoustic guitar, and then I actually later added a piano part myself. But I didn't have a vision for what it would be. For me, it was just a little demo and a little cute song on the ukulele that I sang to my son in the house. I didn't picture it being like a kind of an indie pop track that it turned into. But I love what Fernando did to it, and it's got a really nice vibe to it. It's got that that whistling kind of catchy thing to it. And so that's been a lot of fun to promote that. And of course, I made a video that's just all home movies compiled of me and him and over the first few years of his life. So that was a lot of fun to produce as well. All the gurus say this, you got to make plenty of video content to go along with the songs, because if eventually somebody discovers you and they find you on Spotify and they say, wow, I really like this guy's music, and then they're going to go and they're going to dig into you. And then you're going to have video content to show them. Otherwise, they have nothing to latch onto, and they'll just go to the next song on the playlist. But if somebody stops on a playlist and says, I love that song, who is that guy? Who is that artist that made that?
Yeah.
They're going to want to look into you, and you got to give them some meat. You got to put some meat on the bones that they can digest. So I've been doing that. I still haven't, as I said, I haven't figured out the algorithm yet. I haven't figured out, because the music that I make is kind of, people say, I don't know how to describe it, because it's kind of, well, I mean, I'm a classic rock fan. I'm a child of the 80s and 90s, so like my music has plenty of influence. It's in the rock idiom, let's say. I mean, it's in rock instrumentation, guitar, bass, drums, keyboards, etc. It's not heavy. It's this song, it's acoustic. There's nothing. There's no electric guitar on there. But so okay, it's pop rock. It's classic rock. I haven't found the right hashtag or the right sub micro nano pico genre to classify it yet. But that'll come. Yeah. And that comes from listening to people that hear it and say, oh, that reminds me of this, or that reminds me of that. So as an artist, artists who are listening to this, you got to have an open mind to what your listeners tell you your music brings to their mind, because you know all of your own influences, but you don't know all of them. Subconsciously, other things creep in there that you don't even realize. I never even listened to that band, but somehow it's their style.
I sound like them, or like I've got like an element from it. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yes.
For you, like, I mean, like when you wrote it, obviously was it early on? Like when did the actual, like, the demo part? When was that? Was that at one of the older ones?
Drew was born in 2014. I wrote the song when he was 2 years old, so 2016, like spring of 2016, on the ukulele. And I remember I have a video of me. A friend came over to visit, and I said, okay, I'm just gonna play through and sing the song sitting on the couch. And part of those clips were incorporated into the music video that I made, and that was like May, June 2016. So around that time. Okay. And then I sat on it, and I didn't get into the studio to do it with Fernando. That was in August of 2022. So, that's not one that sat around for 25 years, but it sat around for 6 years.
Yeah.
So, Grant, I spent a lot of time, I front-loaded studio time, 2022, 2023, 2024. I've been in a professional studio environment 3 or 4 or 5 times in the course of the past 3 years. And so I've got a lot of stuff that's pretty much ready to roll. I just got to do the vocals and maybe add some other extra parts. But the core, I've got a couple more albums worth of stuff that's already mostly done, ready to roll out. So I'm excited about that. I'm glad that I did that. I'm not going to be doing that again for a while, because I want to get out the stuff because I don't want to end up one of these artists that's just never gets around to releasing all the stuff that they
you want to get it out and for people to enjoy, and then you kind of can get the one of the things I always hear from bands is like the live kind of feedback, and how when they play the songs live, they get different reactions, and then they kind of latch on to, okay, hey, when I played this song and this part, like this is this was the thing that kind of took their breath away, right?
That's a big challenge for me, because I'm not ready to go and do that yet, and that's a huge investment of time and energy.
Oh,
even if you're super gifted and you can just roll out of bed and sing into it and play really well without having practiced a lot, I would have to woodshed, and that would be hours and hours and hours. And again, I have a regular life and a regular job and all the other things that I have to do. And so if there's a few hours in a day I can devote to this passion, what am I going to spend those hours doing? And practicing scales and, rehearsing songs so I can go to a coffee house gig somewhere, because I haven't played a live gig since 1997. Grant, I'm a little rusty. So for me, it's like, okay, I've got a certain amount of hours in the day. I want to spend them, at least for now. I'm going to spend them finishing up the tracks that I've done, and then making micro content and making the videos to promote the tracks that will be released. And I'm doing them, the waterfall strategy, every 6 or 8 weeks, putting out a song. I've been pretty good about that, and I'm trying every day to make a piece of micro content. A couple of them have gotten some traction. None of them went viral yet, but you know what? They're there. And so if someday somebody comes and says, "Oh, I'm going to go through and go down the rabbit hole of this guy's stuff," and they find all the little shorts that I made of 60 or 30 seconds or whatever, they're there. They never go away. Those things can always get viewed later on. So I feel good about that. And it's fun each day to put out something that features the clip of the song. But when you get to the end of the 6 weeks, you're like, oh, good. I'm kind of tired of hearing that. I'm ready to go on to another one now.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the frame that I'm in right now.
Gotcha. So it seems a pretty systematic approach there. Like, I mean, what, like, for some of the micro content, like, do you have kind of, a couple of things you like, your favorite things you like doing there? Like, what's for that stuff? Like,
I haven't,
what's the easiest to make?
I haven't cracked it yet. I'm just kind of doing what feels natural for me, because in the end, you have to be authentic as an artist. Okay. I'm a regular guy who has, I'm a dad of 2 kids, living in the suburbs, and, I'm not some tortured artist, and I'm not going to pretend to be that. Yeah. I'm a Gen X guy. I'm a middle-aged guy. I have a sense of sarcasm. So my content is sometimes like that. It's like the song playing and me talking about my views on the music industry, the stories behind the song, other little bits of commentary that are relevant to the music. What I'm trying to do is avoid the trap of, oh, let me just make funny content about cats or whatever. But then you get the wrong fans. You get people that it goes viral, has nothing to do with your music. So I'd rather talk about the music, talk about why I make music, what my views are on how the industry is going, all these things that other musicians are always talking about, AI and the state of the record business and how hard it is to promote, or how much people complain about it. So those are kind of things that I do. And I'll also make kind of memes. I'll take clips from popular culture that somehow reflect the song, and I'll, like, for example, the clip I put out today for Jude and I, it was the clip of the scene in the movie Yesterday where Himesh Patel's character, who's the guy who's the only guy and one of the only people in the world who remembers the Beatles, and he's doing Hey Jude in the studio, and he's with Ed Sheeran, and Ed Sheeran's like, look, I'm going to give you a piece of advice. Jude is an old-fashioned name. Call it Hey Dude. He's like, hey dude, no, that's not going to work. So it's basically my song, Jude and I, where I'm singing the chorus, Jude, the name comes up several times, laid over the dialogue of that scene. And Ed Sheeran said, no, don't say Jude. It's too old-fashioned. Say dude. So, like, I try to bring in some pop culture content there to make it relevant, to make it fun. I have fun doing it. I mean, in life, that's kind of my philosophy. If you're not laughing every day, you're doing it wrong, whatever it is. Whether it's your regular job, your passion project, being with your family, being with your friends, life should be full of joy. It's not always easy, but that should be the goal every day. At least for me, that's how I look at it.
I love, I think like that strategy, and it will, again, I've been told by people who've actually had some whatever viral moments or whatever, again, continuing to be consistent and continue to have kind of that humor about it, but also still kind of relevant to what you're doing, I think is kind of the key to staying true to yourself and getting that.
I'm not a 25-year-old kid living in a van dreaming to be a rock star.
We're not going to catch you TikTok dancing.
Yeah, I'm not going to. Actually, sometimes I see somebody because they're like, watch the trends, like all these gurus, like watch the trends. So I watch the trends, and I don't understand some of them, and so I go and I'll just make fun of them, and I'm like, all right, here I am, a Gen X guy trying to understand this stupid trend, and so I do it in a sarcastic way that people that are a bit older will appreciate and find some humor in.
Definitely.
So I that's the approach that I take to it.
I love it. I mean, I think that there's always having a strategy on the content and kind of being able to be focused, because there's just I think there's a ton of music that comes out. I think there's even more videos and content that's constantly being uploaded, and we're just inundated. But if you get something that you like, you go in and then you do exactly what you're talking about, the deep dive. So when you find that niche of folks that are just like, hey, this is hilarious. This guy's going
Yeah,
in, looking at like this, like that. I think, you know, again, using popular culture and different things, splicing that stuff in is
yeah.
brilliant.
I try to do that. I think
The
that's, and
Yeah,
frankly, even in my professional life, like when I do I mean, I work in public relations and advisory, and when I do trainings often, and I do the same thing. I bring in examples from movies and series to illustrate the
yeah,
lessons. So I think that's an easy way to connect to people because there's also a certain amount of nostalgia in it as well. I mean, the music that I'm making has a certain nostalgic feel to it because it's influenced. I mean, it's
hmm,
fresh, it's something new, but it's using the sounds and the instrumentation of bygone eras, and so there's automatically something nostalgic about it. So it makes sense to tie that in.
I love it. I love it. Well, I mean, I think like for us, I'd love to understand, like, you know, how are you doing it? Like, are you going into like, are you just an ace with like iMovie, or like, is it like, how did you like kind of build the skill
It's
to
funny
get
you
into
mentioned
like that
iMovie because
content and like all that stuff?
I'm a Mac guy. Now look, I know my way around computer. I mean, since I was a kid, you know, I'm pretty
Yeah.
good with that kind of stuff. I'm a Mac guy, so I mean, I started with iMovie, but when I discovered CapCut about 6 months ago, I'm still to this day blown away. How can Tim Cook even look at himself in the mirror every morning to compare the freeware of iMovie to the freeware of CapCut? It's not
Mhm.
even in the same league. I mean, CapCut is
Wow.
so far superior to iMovie. You say, oh, but Final Cut Pro, yeah, but that's $300. CapCut is free.
Yeah. No.
Now, a lot of people are pissed off because CapCut they just removed some of the
Hmm.
free features and made them pro, like the automatic subtitle, automatic captioning, and a lot of the text effects and stuff. Okay, there's a hack to get around the automatic captioning because if you there's a site where you can rip an SRT file from the thing itself, and then you can do the automatic captions, and then it will rip that as an SRT file. Then you delete the automatic captions and just upload your SRT file, and then you
Yep.
can export it with subtitles. So anyone who's watching,
Yeah.
there's a hack you can use.
God, I wish I could. I think, you know, I grew up doing computer stuff, but like I don't know what I was spending my time on. I ended up in a world where like I can do this, and then I don't know how to do what you're talking, like the that part of the, you know, the part of the editing process, and just
Well,
I think the
look, I
patience
mean,
to have
the
it.
amazing,
You
I
know.
mean, not just in our field, whether you're a podcaster or a musical artist or whatever you're doing. I
Yeah.
mean, the amount of learning that you can do on YouTube is
Oh
phenomenal.
yeah.
And I'm not talking about paid
Mhm.
courses. I'm talking about free stuff, whether it's how to change the windshield wiper fluid in your car pump to how to edit in CapCut, do a hack for the subtitles on, free subtitles on
Yeah.
CapCut or whatever. There's always, if you're willing to spend the time, and
Yeah.
that's the challenge, is that you got to do everything now. Unless you
Hmm.
have millions of dollars from a record company or from yourself to say, okay, I'm going to hire people to do all these things, you got to do it yourself. So where are you going to spend your time? You got to write songs, you got to record them, you got to edit them, you got to mix and master them. Of course, you're going to pay some people to do some of that stuff, but some people don't. Some people are just, it's all in their bedroom, right?
Yep.
And some of them have number one hit songs doing that. So I'm not taking that away from anybody else. That's not the way that I function, but okay. Then you got to make videos. You got to edit the videos. You got to figure out how to do captions. You got to figure out how to do lighting. Like, I had to set up this light in front of me so that
Yeah.
for this podcast. I mean, all this kind of stuff. There's a lot, Grant. There's a lot of
Yeah.
stuff you got to do, and there's only
You
so many
think
hours
Kiss?
in a day.
You think Kiss would have done it? You know, like, or do you think like any of the, like, you think Kurt
It's
Cobain would have
actually,
been
it's very
interested in that?
sobering when you listen to interviews with some of these iconic musicians, like the people who've nurtured and fed us musically. And you
Yeah.
listen to them, and they're saying, if it was today, I would have just went and gotten a regular job. I wouldn't. I've had the stomach to go, and it's like that's
Yeah.
hurts me in my gut to think like the beautiful stuff that these people created. So what are beautiful things that people could create today that they just won't do because the barrier
Yeah.
of effort and energy to even get in
Yeah.
the game is just too insurmountable.
Yeah. It's like the barrier of entry went down, but the barrier of effort and everything else went
Yes, yes.
incredibly
No,
high. I
so
think
that's
that's a good
a
point.
very important distinction, I think, because I
Yeah.
often say people bitch, oh, but it's so unfair. I said, yes, but Indiebnb is talking to me, talking to the agency right now, and somebody out there can hear this. Now, if this was 30 years
Mhm.
ago, unless I had a multi-million-dollar record deal and you were a DJ on a morning radio station, this conversation would
Yep.
not be happening.
Yep.
So that's a beautiful thing. Now, who is actually going to end up hearing it? Well, that's up to us to do our promotion or get lucky or whatever it happens to be. But
Yeah.
it's possible to do. And even just having a chat with you, like even if this is not to be recorded, it's fun to talk to somebody who loves music, who
Exactly.
wants to hear from artists, who has feedback to give. Like that's a great thing.
Yeah. I think I find like anytime I do this, I'm always just curious. Like I never know, there's some like where I've heard, I've either seen the band, like I've other local Atlanta band or somebody like that who I've met them in person. Like, hey, come on the podcast. Like I
Right.
can, dilly through it. But then there's some where like, hey, like I've got a only the Spotify or whatever kind of materials out there. And then it's the discovery and then you hear the why behind it. And that's really the
Yeah.
thing that like, I think I enjoy learning most about is just like, getting into, all right, hey, like it was a ukulele song. It's now an indie pop hit, and how do we get here? Where did it all come from? And, all of that.
But
So
that's
the best part.
very instructive for anyone who's listening, who's an independent artist like me, getting started
Yeah.
out and struggling with how do you get people to listen. What you just described is the goal, which is to find the people who want to discover new music and get passionate about it, like those early adopters. Because the thing is, when you're coming from, I said nostalgic before, but when you're influenced and you love bands of the 60s and 70s like I do, or even pop music of the 80s or grunge music of the 90s or whatever it is. But the fans of those bands are not looking for you. They're looking for the greatest hits of 1993 or 1983 or 1973 or whatever, right? They're not looking for, oh, look, there's this guy whose song sounds like the Beatles or this guy whose song sounds like King Crimson or whatever it happens to be, or Michael Jackson or whatever. They're not looking for that. They're looking for just things that they know already and make them feel good. But there's the Grants of the world who's saying, I want to discover new things and I want to get passionate about people who are doing it today. And the trick for the people like me is to find out who are the other people like me in the same genre making the same kind of music. And it's hard to find them. And the thing is, Grant, it's an investment of hours a day just listening to music.
Yeah.
Like, so what I'll do is I'll go on Spotify and I'll click on, for example, best new indie rock or indie fresh finds or whatever it is. And I'll go through and while I'm doing a workout or something, or I'm just doing some work or whatever it happens to be, ironing clothes, whatever. And any song that vaguely resembles the work that I'm doing, I'll favorite that artist, go to their Instagram and just make a list of, okay, I need to dig deeper into these artists to find who's like me. And then you got to figure out how to, okay, what you should do, I ideally is have, 100 bands or a few hundred artists that are similar to you, a little bit bigger than you, not huge, but a little bigger than you. And you just spend time every day going through and commenting on those bands so that the algorithm eventually says, oh, this guy is interested in these guys. Let's feed his content to other people who are commenting there. But it's hard because even that sounds great, right? But you go through your feed. Half of it is people selling courses, right? Half of it is nostalgic stuff of, bands from the 70s. And because, okay, that's the algorithm knows that I love that stuff. But man, you're just, oh, well, hold on, here's somebody new. Right? It takes time. It takes a lot of time.
I think the amount of like I've had to like actually start removing things from my taste profile, like things like I work out every day. I have to, I listen to the same stuff while I work out, and I'm like, I don't want that feeding my algorithm. Like that's like, that's just for that. I don't need the WWE theme songs to feed my algorithm. Like I know they're great, but like that's not like, I wanted the like songs, the things that I listen to in my Discover Weekly and the release radar. And then like, it knows, I follow all the bands that are, that we've had on the show. And like those kind of bands should be the ones that they're, spitting for me. And like, amazingly, like, again, we've been lucky. I've been lucky at least to get like some folks that, I found on my Discover Weekly. Sam Tabor is my perfect example of the guy he's a YouTuber, huge apparently.
Okay.
I didn't know that. I didn't watch anything like that. I never watched his channel, but then I get on with him and he's like, "You didn't know anything about me." I'm like, "No, like I listened to you came on my Discover Weekly. I DM'd you. We got on this podcast today."
Right.
And then it was out in 2 weeks, like, and he was like, "Wow, so you have no idea that I have millions of YouTube followers." I'm like,
wow,
no idea. Don't care. Don't watch people play video games. Not doing it. Like, but he had like, but like he was, again, genuine and great to talk to because he really wanted to, just talk about his music and talk about like how it, how it came to be, who we met, how we ended up getting into this. So like, I think like you got to train the algorithm, which like you're talking about, and it does
Yeah,
take hours. Like it takes
it
like a
does.
time,
It does.
it's a, so,
It's work, and it's work that you
mhm.
didn't expect to have to do. When you go into something,
Yeah.
okay, I got to study, I got to practice, I got to stuff. But
Yeah.
even before you can do the marketing, you have to do so much research, and it's
Yeah.
not like school research where you can just, okay, I'm just gonna take this book and study. It's something you have to do over time because the algorithm evolves over time as well, and so
Hmm.
it's a constant effort. It really
Yeah.
is.
But we love the labor of love, and I think like
It is.
the finding new stuff, and having wonderful conversations like this. This is why I do it, at least. And if I can get you one more
Absolutely.
follower, one more person to take a chance, and give you
Of
some
course,
listens.
but
That's what we're
look,
looking
it's
for.
also why I do these is because just not only for that. Yes, I would love for people to discover my music and be able to touch someone that way, but
Hmm.
just it's fun for me to have this talk, to just talk about
Yeah.
my music with someone. Okay, and it's
Um,
also for other artists who are listening who are in the same boat. To try to share with other people the things that went right or wrong for me.
sure.
I said I spent a lot of time in the studio, so I often talk about that when I'm on podcast interviews because there's lots of people who are intimidated by it and they don't know what to expect. And there are certain things that I learned that what's the rights and wrongs of how to work in a studio and how to get the best out of people that you're hiring because
Yeah.
it's a big investment to do that.
Certainly. All right. Well, give us, real quick before we get to Pete Peterson's party pack of questions. I
Yeah.
want to dive in on that topic. Like, give me your top three, like, hey, do's and don'ts in the studio. If you were to prepare, like, I'm a new artist, never done it. What's your advice there?
Okay. Number one, you got to have good charts. It's
Hmm.
essential to have good charts. When these if you're going to hire studio professionals and go in a proper studio, they'll be happy to work on your songs. They may fall in love with your songs and they may just treat it like a day job. But these guys are professionals and their job is to give the best performance they can for your song. So if you don't help them by giving them a demo that has the form that matches the chord chart or the score or whatever's appropriate for that song, you need to give them that. Okay. Second thing, you need to know yourself what the form of the song is. Do not go in there and say, "Oh, well, I'll figure out the melody of the bridge later," or "I'm not sure if this." Don't do that because what ends up happening is you lose a lot of time and you're on the clock. You lose
Yeah.
time and then it also kills the mood because these guys say, "Oh, come on, man. I just laid down the bass part for them. Now you want to change the key because you do a run that goes to a higher register and now we have to lower the key of the song. I got to relearn the bass part. I got to redo everything." That's going to kill the energy of the session. And then you also have to understand that people are people, and just like anything in life, the best, smartest, fastest, richest is not necessarily what's appropriate for you. In the end, I want to work with people that I have fun with, that I laugh with, that are going to give me their best. And even if they're not the greatest guitarist or the greatest whatever, it's the music that you create captures a mood and it captures the spirit and the energy of the people working on it. And so be mindful of that. You want to have good chemistry going into your art. So that's what I would say. Give the studio musicians the tools they need to be successful on your behalf. Make sure that you yourself are prepared and you know what you want out of the session, and make sure that you work with people that have the right kind of personal chemistry with you, because you want to leave the whole experience feeling good about it, not feeling regretful or have negative energy associated with it.
I love it. I love it. That's for we have a lot of folks who maybe will have a passion to want to make music someday. I think like and need to be able to be tight when you get to the studio, so you get the most out of the experience. I think,
Yeah.
and
Well, look,
it feels
anybody
good
who
about
ends
the
up
journey.
watching this and ends up on that path, DM me and I'll be happy to have a call
Yeah.
with you and just go in detail and explain things that happened to me to save other people some of the aggravation. I mean, it's
Yeah.
always good to make rookie mistakes because that's how you learn and that's how you scale up.
Yeah.
You don't want things to go perfectly the first time around and then you think, "Oh, now this is great. I'm going to scale up." And then you find out the inefficiency of the process. But if you can
Yeah.
learn from other people and avoid some of the obvious rookie mistakes, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to help anybody reach out.
You can either touch the stove or you can listen to the guy who said it's already hot. I think that's
That's a very good example, Grant.
so All right. Well, we're going to rip into Pete Peterson's party pack of
Yes.
questions.
Okay.
It's going to be 20 or so questions,
Okay.
kind of this or that, mainly food based as we wrap up here.
Okay.
So, Pete Peterson's party pack. Are we ready, George? Here we
We're
go.
ready. Go.
Cake or pie?
Pie.
He's pieing it up. All right. Salad or soup?
Unbalanced salad.
An unbalanced salad. It sounds like a little
No,
high protein.
unbalanced salad. Depends on the season, though. In the winter,
Okay.
I might say soup, but it's summertime now. I haven't had a bowl of soup in a while, so I'll go with
Okay.
salad.
I love it. All right. Sunrise or sunset? What are you seeing more of?
Sunset.
Sunset. Awesome.
Sunset.
All right. Would you rather hit a home run? Go ahead. Sorry.
No, especially because I was living on. I spent up until last year was living actually in Beirut, Lebanon, which is on the Mediterranean coast. So because it's a west-facing sea, the sun sets over the water. So I'm used to a nice. Would you find the same on the west coast of Florida, or California, or whatever? But growing up on the East Coast, I never saw that because it was always you'd have to wake up at the crack of dawn to see the sunrise over the ocean, which is lovely. But there's something more pleasing to me about a sunset over the water. So I'd go with sunset.
I love that. All right, would you rather hit a home run or score a touchdown?
Home run. I think baseball is a more dramatic and emotional sport.
I love it. All right. Night in or night out? What are you having more of these days?
I think anyone in my age group would say night in.
Yeah. All right, but when you do go out and your jam comes on, you're more likely to hit the robot or the worm on the dance floor?
Worm. I'll go with worm.
He's warming it up. All right. Guac or queso at your favorite Tex-Mex spot?
Oh, guacamole. That's not even...
All right. No question. All right. Waffles or pancakes?
Oh, man. As a guy who grew up in these diners late night and whatever, that's a really tough one. But on the whole, I'd have to go with pancakes, though.
Okay. All right. Coffee or tea with your flapjacks?
Definitely tea. I'm a person who drinks coffee maybe once a month, and it's only because I'm in a situation where it's almost obligatory that you have the cup of coffee, or somebody's serving coffee and you look like a fool not to take it with people or whatever. But no, I'm not a caffeine-oriented person, but I would say tea.
Tea. All right. Dogs or cats?
Oh, God, dogs, please. And no cat ladies, please.
No cat people. All right. Ninja or a pirate? What do you identify more with?
A pirate.
Pirate. All right. All right. Chips or pretzels?
Chips. I'm a fan of chips.
All right. Fries or tots?
Fries. Yeah.
All right. After a long day, are we more likely to rip on a TV show or a movie?
Series. Yeah, TV show.
Series.
I'd go with series more than a movie. Is you plan it out more. Series is something that you'll just bite off an episode at a time if you like. So yeah, I
just gotta put it on the background, get it going.
Yeah.
All right, are aliens real?
Oh boy, I'm gonna give a longer answer to this. The guy who plays keyboards on a lot of my tracks, named Matt Lebowski, he's one of these rare cases of somebody who has a thriving career in a real job, which is he works for the SETI lab at UC Berkeley, which is the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. And he tours with bands, and he's like a master keyboardist. And he's managed for the past 20-something years to have both these careers. Amazing, amazing guy. And I'm so grateful to have his voice and his skill on the keyboards on my tracks. So he and I have had many discussions about this, because he's not looking at it from some like conspiracy theory point of view. He's saying, no, look, I'm analyzing terabytes and terabytes and terabytes of petabytes of data. And he's like, it's really tough to analyze all these signals because of the angle and the rotation or whatever, that even if signals are coming, you just might miss them. It's he can obviously explain this a lot more eloquently than me, but yeah, I'm the jury's out on that one.
Okay. All right. That's the most in depth that we've gotten. I've gotten a lot of just like, it's gotta be, but like, that's a actual person who is studying it. Yeah. Giving you you're the voice for that. So I think that's an honest answer there. I love that.
Yeah. Well, actually, the funny thing that I'm just going to add one bit to that. Funny thing that he qualifies that. He say, it's so funny that rock musicians tend to have these wild conspiracy theories about all of these things. And it's like, somehow they interstellar or intergalactic voyages are so simple, yet like they can't even figure out how to get a clean feed from their guitar through a pedal to the amp. Yet somehow traveling through galaxies is easy and obvious.
Yeah, there's so many simple things on Earth that I feel like we haven't even gone in and fixed yet. Watched a video about airplane Wi-Fi. Like, why is it so slow? It's like, how come it's like we can't get back to the moon, but and we can't get that right. Like how are
Right?
we
Yeah.
how are we going to have
You're
aliens
preaching to the
want to
choir.
come here? So, all right, is Bigfoot real?
No.
No, I think that
Harry and
one's
Henderson's
getting
was a
a lot
great
more.
movie, but that's as far as I'm going to go with that.
I agree with that 100%. Is Love at First Sight real?
No, not really.
No.
You might think that
Takes
it
a little
is,
work.
but
I love that.
yeah.
All right. And, again, this last question, I think I'm excited to hear your answer. So, who are a couple bands that, you feel are, in the vein of the agency that we ought to check out that we might not know? And who would you like to put on? Give me two of them that we've been digging on a little bit.
I'm going to plug a friend from high school named Elena Batt. She's a singer in a duo, which is now expanding to a full band called Night Fountain. They're based in the Hudson Valley, and the Hudson Valley has an amazing music scene. From time to time, I go up there to visit her. It's a really unique sound because Elaine and I grew up together singing in choir, singing classical repertoire. She's done a lot of operatic repertoire, but she also has a lot of influence from musical theater, from jazz. And the other member of the duo is a classical guitarist, but he's also a metal guitarist. So it's a very odd combination of sounds, very unorthodox kind of melodies and chord progressions. So I always love listening to, and I know her personally, so I hear a lot of her in there, and I totally admire her as a performer because when she gets on stage, she's behind the microphone. I just look at her and I'm like, God, I don't think I could ever be as natural as you are. So Night Fountain. I don't think they've released anything on Spotify yet, but you can check them out on Instagram. It's a wonderful band that I want to see go places.
All right, who else you got? Give me another one.
There's one guy that I've seen on just doing my research that I appreciate. His name is Windsor, Windser. He's just, I think, put out his first full album. But yeah, kind of an indie pop kind of a sound. And I like some of his production style. I like some of the chord choices that he does, a little bit of some unorthodox, unexpected things, but in a way that like the clever listener will pick it up, but it doesn't come across as weird. So I always like that. I always like people who can take a little bit of musical complexity and make it smooth enough that the average person doesn't hear. I think that's something I aspire to do with my own songs as well.
I love it. Well, we got Night Fountain and Windsor. Those are the agency's picks. George, we appreciate you taking the time to come bless us here at the Indiebnb. Look forward to following you through your waterfall process, getting all the music out. Everybody else needs to go follow them on Instagram and on Spotify. That way, or wherever you get your music, and get
and YouTube as well. I should add that my
YouTube.
first project was a mashup covers project, and because of I could spend a whole podcast episode talking about everything I learned about the legal aspects of doing mashup covers. Long story short, you cannot technically release those on Spotify unless you get clearance from all of the copyright holders, which would be an enormously expensive and negative energy and time-consuming process. But YouTube with Content ID, because YouTube realizes, look, everyone wants to upload covers, they will allow it. And so I put out my first album exclusively on YouTube, which is some crazy mashup covers, taking songs from 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and things that don't really belong together at all and putting them together. And so that was my first album, actually. So YouTube is a place where you'll find things that go deeper than what you'll find even on Spotify from me.
I love it. Well, check out the mashups. I mean, we get get you going on a weekend, get you going to on your car ride. Come on, let's go. I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. Well, George, thank you so much for stopping in.
Thank
We
you,
appreciate
Grant.
it.
Again, it's great. It's very much appreciated what you do for me and for other artists. And like I said, they always talk about building a community, but it sounds cliche, but it's true. Nobody's out there to help us except ourselves, and people who love music need to back each other up. So I'm look forward to this being released. I'm gonna chop it up and make little shorts out of it and tag you in those as well, so that we can keep feeding each other's algorithm and all that good stuff.
I love it. I love it, man. We'll look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you.